Hello, welcome to the Roundtable Color of Us ABCs of Early Childhood Music Therapy Worldwide. I'm Dr. Petra Kern, the owner of Music Therapy Consulting and Della Vista Publisher. I also serve as the editor-in-chief of Imagine, your evidence-based resource for early childhood music therapy. I'm a board-certified music therapist, consultant, global educator, researcher, member of the board of directors of the certification boards for music therapists, and former president of the World Federation of Music Therapy. A tradition since the 2008 World Congress of Music Therapy in Argentina, the Color of Us Roundtable brings together music therapists from around the world to talk about the latest developments of working with young children and their families. My 2020 invited speakers will represent demographics, practices, and trends of early childhood music therapy from countries located in WFMT's 8 regions. LMFU represents South Africa, the host country of the 2020 World Congress of Music Therapy. Josh Birch speaks about early childhood music therapy in Australia. Crystal Foster brings to you new developments from Kuwait, and Hannah Riedel speaks about projects happening in Austria. Dr. Dina Register represents Thailand in Southeast Asia, and Dr. Kumi Sato, Japan in the Western Pacific region. Gabriel Federico from Argentina brings a Latin American perspective to this roundtable, and I am representing the United States of America. Each of us will address the following 3 questions. What is the status of early childhood music therapy in your country? What does clinical practice look like, and which trends are on the horizon? Let's hear first from Ermi Viu from South Africa.
Currently, we have 60 qualified music therapists, of which 46 are practicing music therapy either full-time or part-time. A recent survey indicated that 47.5% of practicing music therapists in South Africa are providing early childhood music therapy interventions. This is predominantly within a private practice setting or a special needs preschool setting. How does clinical practice look like in South Africa? South Africa is a multicultural country. We have 11 official languages and a diverse set of cultures and traditions. This often makes it difficult for healthcare professionals to communicate and understand the needs of their patients. We are all aware of the potential music holds in serving as a non-verbal communicative intervention. Music therapists in South Africa are conducting clinical interventions using a creative music therapy approach. A creative music therapy approach allows our clients the opportunity to contribute songs and dances from their own cultures in the sessions. This makes every session unique and culturally appropriate. Which trends are on the horizon for South African music therapists? Amidst the COVID-19 pandemic, the South African Health Board had to put ethical codes and regulations in place so that music therapists can conduct sessions online. Being such a small community of music therapists in South Africa, this can offer us ethical ways of reaching more children and making music therapy services more accessible for children throughout the country. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Ermi. We are looking forward to hearing more about South African culture and traditions embedded in music therapy sessions during this online World Congress of Music Therapy. Next comes Josh Birch from Australia.
In our country, we have seen a broader awareness of music therapy as an evidence-based profession and have seen a significant increase in the demand for clinicians working in early childhood intervention settings. The most prominent reason for music therapy's growth in Australia is the recent establishment of the National Disability Insurance Scheme, or the NDIS. As a result of this new source of funding, which is the largest social health reform in our country's history, music therapy has crucially become more viable and accessible for families who have children with special needs. Yet, whilst the NDIS has enabled the profession to develop, the Australian Music Therapy Association is still having to advocate on behalf of clinicians and educate politicians on the beneficial role of music therapy within childhood intervention services. However, the Australian government has expressed a commitment towards promoting an inclusive approach within the community. For many music therapists in Australia, this manner of working aligns perfectly with a motivation to draw upon a child's inherent strengths and interests. As a result of this approach, music therapy sessions are typically child-led, family-centered, with a clear desire to encourage and promote music play within the home environment. From a practical perspective, sessions are offered in either individual or group contexts that take place in homes, clinical spaces, or preschool settings. During these visits, therapists will typically utilize familiar songs, instrumental play, movement activities, improvisation, and technology to support a child's individualized goals, which range from social communication and cognitive development to motor skills and motor planning. Yet, with this increasing demand for music therapy and the potential growth of the profession within Australia, clinicians are having to re-evaluate how they deliver services. It is approximated that there are only 600 registered music therapists working across all sectors within Australia, which has a national population of just over 25 million people. As a result of this mounting interest from families of children with special needs to access music therapy, it could be suggested that we'll not only have to provide additional research to justify the profession's measurable outcomes, but the workforce will have to expand to appropriately accommodate this emerging need in the community.
It is great to hear that there's increased demand for early childhood music therapy service in Australia. But as Josh said, with the growth comes also the challenge of obtaining more qualified music therapists to provide evidence-based services. I'm especially interested to hear about how early childhood music therapy developed in WFMT's Eastern Mediterranean region. Let's see what Crystal Foster has to report from Kuwait.
So, early childhood music therapy is still in its infancy stages in Kuwait, as there are only 2 practicing music therapists in the entire country. The clinical practice of music therapy can currently be found in pediatric developmental clinics or in in-home therapy sessions for private practice. Since clinical music therapy is still in its infancy stages here in Kuwait, it feels like the possibilities for the future are endless and exciting. As people continue to see the benefit of music therapy interventions in supporting early childhood developmental goals, Kuwait will need to have more music therapists to support the demand for services. As awareness grows for music therapy, it will hopefully inspire people in the community to study music therapy and bring its benefits back to Kuwait.
Thank you, Crystal. I hope that your work inspires Kuwaiti students to study music therapy. Next, let's hear from Hannah Riedel from Austria.
Therapy is funded as part of the treatment offered in institutional settings, music therapy in private practice is not yet reimbursed by social insurances. Music therapy in Austria is heavily influenced by various psychotherapeutic approaches such as psychodynamic, humanistic, and systemic traditions. Within this context, music therapists use improvisation, musical games, familiar or improvised songs, role play, or various receptive methods to work towards individual therapeutic goals. Music therapists working within early childhood in Austria do so most commonly in individual settings, but also in group settings and increasingly even in family settings. Music therapy with families is also one of the main emphases of the Music Therapy Research Center in Vienna. Together with the Music Therapy with Families Network, we currently organize an international symposium on this topic. It will take place on the 17th to the 19th September 2021 in Vienna. This symposium will be a wonderful opportunity to share experiences from music therapists working with families around the world. And since the involvement of caregivers is a particularly important aspect in the field of early childhood music therapy, we are very much looking forward to seeing many of you there.
Thank you, Hannah. I'm looking forward to the 2021 International Symposium in Vienna. Next comes Dr. Dina Register, a pioneer in starting a music therapy program in Thailand.
Over the last 10 years, there has been a significant increase in the number of young children that receive music therapy services as a result of establishing clinical partnerships and advocacy for music therapy, which began back in 2009. As the numbers of trained professionals have increased, so have the variety of clinical settings where young children have access to services. Families now have access to one-on-one music therapy, which addresses specific developmental goals for children with special needs. Additionally, there is an increased access to early childhood group music classes that address both musical and developmental goals. Some of the locations where one can access music therapy services include the Mahidol University Music Therapy Clinic, Sirantor National Medical Rehabilitation Center, Sirira Hospital, Ramathabodi Hospital, and other clinical service organizations that are focused on meeting the needs of young children. Trends on the horizon for music therapy in Thailand include the use of technology that is inexpensive and accessible by families. This includes the expansion of knowledge for music therapists in Thailand as well. As our clinical training programs grow and develop, there's an increased focus on learning repertoire, knowing what the preferences of early childhood clients are, using apps as part of the therapeutic plan, and engaging with families through telehealth. All of these aspects will help the profession continue to grow rapidly as it has over the last 10 years. This will also help us to reach families that do not live in an area where music therapists work.
Thank you, Dina. I'm excited to hear that early childhood music therapy is growing in Thailand. Now we will learn from Dr. Kumi Sato about the developments in Japan.
As Japan is a hyper-age society, there are more chances to work for elderlies compared to opportunities working in early childhood settings. However, if parents or the manager or staff of those facilities hear about music therapy, they usually show a great interest. Due to limited financial resources, they often have to give up having music therapy, but still, we can say there is a high demand for early childhood music therapy. Music therapists working in this setting address individual needs by implementing various musical activities, including singing, instrument playing, and movement. Many music therapists conduct ongoing assessment and evaluation. They might be asked to submit a report a few times a year, depending on the facility they work, but it's rare for music therapists to get involved in the educational support team meetings. Speaking of future trends, music therapists can consider what Ministry of Education aims more. The guideline for special education states each child with disabilities should have special classes called jiritsu-katsudo, which are planned individually to address the child's needs and encourage their independence. As the aim of this special class for kindergarten students is to develop necessary skills for learning or daily living, music therapy in early childhood setting can also focus on those skills addressed in the guideline.
Thank you, Kumi, for your honest evaluation. Now, Gabriel Federico, a music therapist from Argentina, will share his responses to the 3 questions.
And the status of the early childhood music therapy in my country had a very important development since the beginning of the early 70s. But after we obtained the law of the professional practice a couple of years ago, many children with disabilities have been included in the coverage of the medical plan offered by the Ministry of Health. This allows access to sessions, not to depend on the private payment. In parallel to this instance, many of the music therapy departments have been opened in different hospitals that have planted the profession in new areas of intervention, and this is growing a lot. Regarding the clinical practice, the music therapist included and works in interdisciplinary teams, working with doctors, psychologists, physical therapists, speech therapists, psychopedagogists, specialists in early intervention, and etc. This is done on his own office, where the practice are private, or in a therapeutic center, hospital, or community, always depending on the area of the professional development are. This area could be in rehabilitation, in special education, or in community. I think that children's music therapy has a great future in my country. Little by little, it is entering the attention of the little ones in neonatology, or as in my case, working from pregnancy. But where a very significant increase is in the work with children with autism or in hospital settings. On the other hand, my feeling is that after this global pandemic of the COVID-19, new and varied ways of attending to our customers remotely will emerge. We have learned to live together and continue with our treatments through technological device during the health emergency, which will let us to think on new ways of doing music therapy.
Thank you, Gabriel, for making clear that Argentina has a long tradition and a strong stance in serving children with disabilities. Now it is my turn to give you an update on the United States of America. Out of 8,505 board-certified music therapists, about 12% currently work with young children. Music therapists are required to collect comprehensive assessment data to identify the child's level of functioning for individualized intervention planning and to determine the type and intensity of service delivery under the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, or IDEA Part A and B. Based on the child's abilities and developmental needs, music therapists provide direct coaching or consultative services and apply evidence-based strategies, family and inclusive practices. Music therapy services are typically delivered in preschools, family homes, or communities once or twice per week for 30 minutes. Monitoring and documenting the child's ongoing process is part of the therapeutic process, and services are typically terminated when goals are met. During the COVID-19 pandemic, many music therapists quickly adapted and provided telehealth services to their young clients and families. While still in its infancy, it has great potential for children and families in rural areas. Additionally, technologies such as extended realities and artificial intelligence could revolutionize early childhood music therapy in the near future. Triggered through this crisis, we will need to leap and reinvent early childhood music therapy services to keep our young clients safe while supporting their development and growth. If you would like to learn more about early childhood music therapy around the world, check out the 2020 issue of Imagine. You will find interviews and podcasts related to cultural responsiveness, diverse language learners, and trauma-informed care for displaced children. In addition, you will find 42 country profiles featuring current demographics, laws and policies, the therapeutic process, a clinical example, future trends, resources, song playlists, and where to find a music therapist. I'm closing this roundtable with Children's Voices Worldwide, featured in the ABC's mashup song produced by Chris Millett. Thank you for your attention to this roundtable.
A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P. La segona volta de